All right, let's get right into it. We've all been there, right? Staring at a bubble sheet, filling in A, B, C, or D. But how do you actually measure something real, something complex, like creativity or critical thinking, or just the ability to build something from the ground up? That's exactly what we're going to break down here. And that's the central problem, isn't it? These skills, these abilities, they're often invisible. You can't just ask a multiple choice question to figure out if someone can deliver a powerful speech, or paint a moving portrait, or design a brilliant experiment. So the question becomes, how do we make those invisible skills visible? This slide just nails the core difference. On one side, you've got your traditional tests. And look, they're great at measuring what you know, facts, dates, definitions. There's one right answer, plain and simple. But on the other side, we have what are called performance assessments. These are all about what you can do. And here, there isn't just one right answer. There are many, many possible high-quality answers. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about what it even means to go beyond the bubble sheet. Then, we'll dive into the toolbox, things like constructed responses and essays. We'll uncover the secret to scoring them fairly, see how they can be used to showcase growth, and finally, we'll tackle the big trade-off that every expert has to grapple with. Okay, section 1, beyond the bubble sheet. This is all about that fundamental idea, making those hidden skills visible by asking people to actually do something, to create something real. The official name for this is a performance-based assessment, and it's pretty intuitive. Instead of asking you to list the steps for conducting an experiment, this approach says, hey, go ahead and conduct the experiment. It's all about showing what you can do through action, not just memory. You know, it's the difference between knowing the recipe and actually baking the cake. So let's open up that toolbox. Our very first tool is something called a constructed response item, and that's the focus of section 2, building a response. A constructed response item is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. You have to construct your answer from scratch. You're not just selecting A, B, C, or D. You are supplying the answer. This could be anything from drawing a diagram to writing a short report, or, like we're about to see, visualizing some data. Now, check out how simple this prompt looks. Make a chart. But don't let that fool you. Its real power is in that openness because it forces you to make choices that reveal your skills. So, faced with that prompt, one person might create a really straightforward bar chart showing each student's score. It's accurate, it's clear, a perfectly valid, high-quality response. But then, someone else might look at the exact same data and think, I'm going to visualize this as a donut chart, showing the percentage of students who got each score. Totally different, but you know what? Also a fantastic answer. And a third person, they might build a frequency chart, showing how many students got each score. So here's the key takeaway. None of these is the single correct answer. They're all good responses that show different ways of thinking about the data. The assessment isn't about finding one right answer. It's about the quality of what you built. Okay, let's move on to our next tool, one that I'm pretty sure most of us are very familiar with. Section 3 is all about the art of the essay. This is the classic way to get at critical thinking and how well you can express your ideas. But it turns out not all essays are created equal. You really have two main flavors. On the left, you have the unrestricted response. This is wide open. It's an invitation for creativity, letting you show what you know however you see fit. But the restricted response on the right, that's much more focused. It sets clear boundaries, telling you exactly what to do. Neither one is better. They just measure different things. And here is a fantastic practical tip for you. When you're tackling one of these, a great strategy to keep in mind is the 30-60-10 rule. Spend about a third of your time planning and outlining. Then, a little over half your time actually writing, and then save that crucial final 10% for rereading and polishing. It's a simple little framework, but it can make a huge difference in quality. So if there are so many possible right answers, how on earth do you score them fairly and consistently? Well, that brings us to section 4 and the secret weapon of performance assessment, the blueprint for quality, also known as the rubric. A rubric, at its heart, is just a scoring guide. It takes a really complex task and breaks it down into its most important parts, or criteria. And for each of those criteria, it clearly defines what different levels of quality actually look like. It's what makes a subjective process much, much more objective. This is where the magic really happens. Look at this. A task as subjective as drawing a self-portrait suddenly becomes scoreable because it's broken down into technique, craftsmanship, and effort. And notice, it's not just good or bad. For each category, there are really clear descriptions for what a 3, a 2, or a 1 looks like. This is that blueprint for quality in action. And the benefits here are just huge. Rubrics make scoring way faster and the feedback way more specific. They force the person doing the grading to be crystal clear about what actually matters most. And, best of all, when you share them beforehand, they empower the person being assessed to understand the expectations and even judge their own work. So, these assessments give us a great snapshot in time. But what about the whole movie? How do you measure progress? Well, that's where our next tool, the portfolio, comes in. Welcome to Section 5, Showcasing Growth. This is such a critical point. A portfolio isn't just a random folder where you dump all your work. A good portfolio is intentional. It's a curated, systematically organized collection that's designed to show effort, progress, and accomplishment over time. Yeah, the best portfolios are like living documents. They provide ongoing feedback, they capture all the different facets of a skill, and they involve the creator in reflecting on their own learning journey. But most importantly, they tell a story. The story of development from where you started to where you are now. And that brings us to our final section, and it's a really important one for understanding all of these types of assessments. Section 6 is the expert's trade-off, and it's all about the natural tension between validity and reliability. So, here's the bottom line. Performance assessments have incredibly high validity. That means they are excellent at measuring the right thing, the actual complex skill we care about. But because they rely on human judgment, they can have lower reliability. That just means the scoring might be less consistent than a computer-graded multiple-choice test. Even with a great rubric, a little bit of subjectivity, a little randomness can creep in. That's the trade-off. Which brings us to a really fascinating modern twist on that trade-off, and a final question for you to think about. We now have AI that can grade essays and get almost the exact same score as a trained human expert. It does this by spotting patterns, complex sentences, big words, good structure. It doesn't understand the argument, not really, but it recognizes the hallmarks of good writing. So the question is, if the score is right, does it matter how we got there? That's something for us to decide.